Hello, and welcome to your astrological insights for the week of March 9th through the 15th. Last week, we talked about the arrivals and departures. Mars swimming into Pisces, a lunar eclipse in Virgo shaking loose what needed releasing, Venus charging into Aries, and Mercury's Cazimi moment offering that rare flash of clarity in the fog of retrograde. This week, the sky continues to build on everything that opened up. We are still swimming in deep Pisces waters, but now something begins to shift toward forward momentum, forward movement. This week brings Jupiter stationing direct in Cancer on Tuesday night. The planet of abundance and faith begins moving forward again after months of being retrograde. A last quarter moon in Sagittarius on Wednesday, the release phase of the lunar cycle, asking us what beliefs no longer serve. Mars in Pisces conjuncting the North Node. That's action aligning with soul purpose in a profound and yet spiritually charged moment for us. The Mercury retrograde's continuing its journey through Pisces, but now it'll be conjuncting both Pallas and Mars. Ceres entering Taurus on Saturday, shifting the themes of nourishment, loss, and natural cycles into more earthy sensory terrain. The balsamic moon beginning Sunday, which is our quietest, most surrendered phase of the entire lunar cycle. It's preparing the ground for what comes next. So this week ahead is of turning points, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet interior kind. The kind where something you've been circling, that we've been circling, finally becomes clear. So let's zoom out first, as we usually do, and then we'll talk it through each day. So first, let's talk about the big picture. We've got Jupiter stationing direct in Cancer on Tuesday, March 10th. Significant shift of the week, the most, if not of the month ahead. Jupiter's been retrograde in Cancer since this past November, and it's been turning its expansive gaze inward and asking you to do the same, to re-examine what home means, what family asks of you, right? That's our retro, where your emotional roots run deep and where they've been running dry. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It is at its highest, most powerful expression in this sign. Cancer is the sign of home, family, emotional nourishment, ancestral lineage, and the kind of belonging that you just cannot buy. And Jupiter, our planet of expansion, luck, faith, abundance, and our personal philosophy. It amplifies everything it touches in Cancer. So when Jupiter's turning direct, the energy that's been processing inward begins to shift outward. Things that felt stalled around your home life, around your family dynamics, your emotional healing, or maybe even your sense of where you belong. Those things are going to start opening up again for you. Opportunities that you couldn't quite grasp during that retrograde cycle and season may now start becoming a little more accessible. Here's the nuance of this, though. Jupiter in Cancer doesn't expand through hustle, right? It expands through your emotional truth. It's asking you to let your feelings be your compass. That's Cancer. To nourish yourself into others, to make space for what is tender, to root into what you love. Whatever this retrograde period has been clarifying for you around home, family, emotional security, and where you truly belong, now is when the doors begin to swing open. So pay attention to what shifts in your life this week and even the weeks following, right? Because Jupiter direct in Cancer is saying to you, your emotional roots are your abundance. Stop treating them as a secondary. All week, Mercury is still retrograde and will be through most of March. We've been living in this backward, dreamy, Piscean, I should say, mental landscape for weeks now. It's foggy in the logical mind, but rich with intuition, dreams, and emotional intelligence. The revisiting continues, old conversations resurface. The words don't always flow the way you're going to want them to. And yet, something deeper is really speaking to us right now. And this week, Mercury retrograde makes two really powerful connections. It's a conjunction with Pallas, the asteroid of wisdom and strategy, and that's on Monday, and then a conjunction with Mars on Sunday as we wrap the week. Together, these represent a full arc from intuitive wisdom at the start of the week to decisive and soulful action by the end. Pay attention to the insights that arise early in the week. They are laying the groundwork for what you are going to be ready to do by Sunday and then into the week ahead. Mercury turns direct later in March, but for now, receive, review, and trust what arises from that quiet. We also have Mars in the North Node on Friday the 13th. The North Node is your soul's evolutionary direction, right? That point in your chart and in the collective sky that represents where you are being called to grow, to stretch, and become. It's your karmic destiny. When a planet conjuncts the North Node, there's a fated quality to that energy, something that feels important, something that feels right, even if it asks something of you. And this Friday, Mars in Pisces meets in the North Node in Pisces. Mars is drive, action, courage, and the expenditure of your energy. In Pisces, that drive is not a warrior's charge. It is a swimmer's surrender. Mars in Pisces acts from feeling, from compassion, from that spiritual alignment. At its most powerful, it's not when it pushes, but when it trusts. Mars conjunct the North Node in Pisces is saying the action aligned with your soul's purpose right now is the action taken from a place of surrender, a place of service and spiritual truth. So, where are you being called to move? Not from ambition or fear, but from love. This is a significant collective moment as well. Watch what arises in the world around as these themes of compassion and really spiritual leadership, sacrifice, and the meeting of action with devotion. All right, now let's get down to our day by day, because as you can see, we have a whole lot going on this week ahead. All right, so Monday, March 9th, the week opens in the dark before dawn as the moon in Scorpio opposes Uranus in Taurus. Opposition energy is relational. It asks you to balance competing forces, to hold tension rather than resolve it prematurely. Scorpio wants depth, control, and emotional truth. Uranus, it wants freedom, disruption, and the unexpected. And the result? It's a jolt. You may wake with a restless edge, an emotional undercurrent, or a sense that something is really about to shift. Don't force anything until you've had your morning cup of joe before that sun is fully up. 9:36 a.m., this is Mountain Daylight Time, that moon enters Sagittarius and the whole atmosphere changes. The Sagittarius moon is optimistic, it's philosophical, hungry for something larger than what's right in front of it. It breathes, it expands. And after Scorpio's intensity, this is going to feel like a genuinely welcome shift. From there, the day flows beautifully. We have 3 trines in the afternoon. The easiest, most natural aspect in astrology, and it's going to carry the Sagittarius moon into resonance with 3 planets in Aries. Moon will trine Neptune first, and that's opening the intuitive and spiritual channels. This is a creative, imaginative, and quietly inspired window. Then it'll trine Saturn, and that's going to add that structure and focus. You can actually do something with the inspiration instead of just feeling it, right? Later in the evening or later in the afternoon, it's going to trine with Venus. And this one is going to bring, close out your day with like warmth and beauty, genuine relational ease, because it's fire to fire and it's trine after trine. So let Monday afternoon and evening carry you. In between those trines, we still have Mercury retrograde in Pisces, but it's conjuncting Pallas in Pisces. Pallas is that asteroid of wisdom, strategy, and pattern recognition. In Pisces, that wisdom is intuitive. It arrives as feeling, as image, as knowing rather than reasoning. With Mercury retrograde here, this is not the new time for a grand new plan. It's time for recognizing, seeing something that you've already understood, but from a new angle. Trust the ideas that arrive maybe a little bit sideways today. The day's going to close with that moon sextiling Pluto. It's going to bring a magnetism, a depth, and a quiet power, not powder. And then that moon's going to square with Mars, which can bring a little bit of friction and restlessness right before bed. So don't push, don't argue. Squares are how we grow. It's just not how we finish a day. So the highs for this day, we're looking at our high the trine sequence, right, that we're going to have going on. Then we have that creative and structured, loving Mercury Pallas intuitive wisdom. Lows, we have some early morning Scorpio opposition, that jolt with Uranus. And then at late night, we have the squares happening, right, with Mars. Tone ultimately for Monday, it's turbulent dawn giving way to a flowing firelit ease. So then we move into Tuesday. And the overnight Venus in Aries sextile Pluto in Aquarius, really early morning for us here, Mountain Daylight, is a quiet but potent undercurrent as the day begins. An attractive, transformative, quality to love and values. It's running beneath everything like a deep current, right? Still, we got our water. You may not feel it differently, but it's there. The day itself is going to carry more friction than Monday. We have that moon squaring Chiron retrograde, and that's in the early morning. And it's going to touch on those old wounds for us, especially in the emotional body, those identity wounds that never really quite disappear, and the places where you've never felt really enough or fully accepted. It's an early morning territory and often showing up in your dreams, maybe in that half awake state when you first open your eyes. Then midday, Vesta in Capricorn is going to square Chiron in Aries. Vesta is the asteroid of sacred devotion. It's the inner flame. When that flame bumps into Chiron's wounds, the question is going to become, where has your sense of duty or devotion been shaped by pain? Have you been tending something out of fear rather than your true calling? Tough questions. Vesta enters Pisces, and that shifting of that tone of sacred devotion into softer, more spiritual terrain is going to feel good. The flame of commitment then moves from Capricorn's structured responsibility into Pisces' mystical service. More water, right? Where are you being called to devote yourself? Not to an obligation, but to a spiritual truth. The moon will square Mercury retrograde in the afternoon, and that's bringing that familiar Mercury retro fog back into relational communications. Words may not land the way you want. Feelings may not translate clearly into words and language. It's not the afternoon to draft the difficult messages or contracts, resolve complex understandings. Just let it rest. That night, Jupiter's going to station direct in Cancer, as we talked about earlier in the podcast. If you feel something shift Tuesday evening, something lifting or opening in an area of your life you've been waiting on, yay. That is Jupiter turning its face forward again. Just embrace it, but give it space. Let it breathe. That expansion that's been building inward is about to really begin moving outward. Some highs, we have that magnetism overnight. We have Vesta entering Pisces, bringing that spiritual devotion. And of course, Jupiter going direct. Lows is that moon Chiron wound contact before dawn. And of course, the comms fog around communication midday. Tone overall is pretty tender in the morning, but uncertain midday and quietly monumental by the time you move into the evening. Then we have Wednesday. We have our last quarter moon in Sagittarius, and that's perfect. In this lunar cycle, it's the phase of release and course correction. The full moon illuminates us. Now the moon has waned. And what it asks this quarter in this phase is simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. It's what are you still holding that doesn't serve where you're going? Sagittarius is ruling our beliefs, philosophy, the truth seeking, and the stories we tell about the meaning of our lives. A last quarter moon in Sag is asking you to examine the belief systems, the narratives, the philosophies that you've been living inside of, and to let go, release the ones that have expired. It's expired. What have you been certain of that's no longer actually true for you? What story about your life, about yourself, about what's possible is ready to be set down? It's not dramatic work. It doesn't require a bonfire or ceremony. It does require that you're honest. 1109 Palace in Pisces is trining Jupiter in Cancer. Beautiful flowing connection between that intuitive wisdom and the emotional expansion that we have. The ideas that arrive, the dreamy, poetic, non-linear form today carry real weight, so trust them. Jupiter's direct. This trine says the wisdom your intuition has been gathering. It's now ready to move out and just boom in the world, right? 3 minutes later, that moon in Sagittarius is trining Chiron in Aries. Trines are tools. They flow, they ease. Where there's been pain around identity and self-worth, think about that Chiron in Aries. This trine's offering a moment of genuine healing access. You don't have to force it. Just let yourself be a little softer. The moon enters Capricorn at 10:07 p.m. and the tone definitely shifts from that wide open philosophical Sagittarius sky. Now we're practical, we're structured, we're responsible, we're all oriented in Capricorn ground. And after the release of the last quarter moon, Capricorn is going to say, now what are you actually going to build? Highs for the day. We've got Pallas, Jupiter, intuitive wisdom really flowing. That moon Chiron healing ease and the clarity of the last quarter release. Some lows, we've got early morning last quarter moon demanding that emotional truth from you about what needs to go. The tone, philosophical, releasing, quietly healing and letting go of that story that no longer fits your narrative. It's a lot. On Thursday, now we're Capricorn moon and it's going to be all day. So it's doing something interesting. It's going to make a series of squares for us, all to planets in Aries and Pisces. And then it's going to be punctuated by sextiles to the Pisces planets. In other words, the tension and the ease are both just present. So the day is going to ask you to find your footing between what you can practically structure and what your emotional and spiritual life is asking for from you. So first, that moon is squaring Neptune, 1:02 a.m., and that can really blur the edges of sleep or early morning clarity. Dreams may be really vivid, but really hard to interpret. Then our moon's squaring Saturn at 4:21 a.m., and that's heavier. The disciplinarian turning its gaze on your emotional body, asking what you've been disciplined about, what you've been avoiding. These are challenging, yeah, yeah. But Capricorn and Saturn together understand that challenge is not punishment, right? It is the material form which something lasting is really made. By afternoon, that energy is going to soften. That moon is sextiling Mars at 2:15 p.m. and it's going to energize and action orient. Capricorn's practical direction is meeting Pisces' flowing drive. So something you've been wanting to do gets a small green light. Then we have our moon sextiling the North Node at 3:53 p.m. and it's bringing that little sense, that quiet sense of alignment. It's a feeling of being on path, even when that path isn't fully visible. The moon sextiling Mercury in retrograde at 9:07 brings the evening to a thoughtful close, or a conversation, a journal entry, the insight that arrives in the quiet. Moon scoring Venus at 1:50 m carries a brief tension. Your practical ambitions, hello Capricorn, brush against Aries Venus's desire for immediate beauty, love, and self-assertion. Neither's wrong. They just speak different languages today. Our highs, we've got afternoon sextile sequence, so productive, purposeful, aligned. Evening Mercury sextile offering some thoughtful insight for us. The lows, we have all that pre-dawn square action to Neptune and Saturn, bringing some heaviness and some fog, and then a midday tension between structure and desire as we shift. Our tone ultimately for Thursday is heavy before sunrise, finding our footing in the afternoon, and quiet and purposeful by evening. Then we have Friday, March 13th. Woo, I love me of March. I love Friday the 13th. Mars is meeting Destiny Moon in Capricorn is opposing Jupiter in Cancer at 4:10 a.m. Ongoing Capricorn Cancer axis is speaking again. It's the tension between duty and nurturing, between achievement and belonging, between what you produce and what you feel. It moves fast, but if you're awake at 4 a.m., you may feel it as a question with no clean answer in sight. The day's defining event's really going to arrive at 3:58 p.m. when Mars in Pisces is going to conjunct that North Node in Pisces. And we talked a lot about that at the beginning. This is our heartbeat of the week. Mars and the North Node meet, and that action and soul direction become one. In Pisces, that action is not a strategic thing. It's devotional, right? It's intuitive. It flows from a place of surrender and spiritual truth. So you have to ask yourself, what am I being called to do that I've been resisting because it requires me to trust rather than to control? It's likely exactly the right move. Mars conjunct the North Node in Pisces is fated territory. What arises today, an impulse, an invitation, a clear inner knowing, take it seriously. Moon sextile Sun in Pisces at 8:41 brings the day to a harmonious close for us. Head and heart, we're going to find a pleasant rhythm, a sense of quiet rightness to the whole thing. The Pisces Sun and our Capricorn Moon in sextile are having an actual conversation. Structure and soul, they're on speaking terms in this moment. And our Chiron then is squaring with the moon at the close. So it's got a little tender friction, right? That old wound that we want to pick at, once more to be seen. And with the North Node having just moved, you may find you have slightly more capacity to meet it with compassion rather than just being defensive. Our highs, we're looking at that Mars conjunct North Node. It's fated, soulful action for us. Evening moon, sun in harmony, right? Good stuff. Lows, we've got that pre-dawn moon Jupiter opposition and then the late night Chiron wound, right? Basically, Friday is quietly fated. So what you do matters more than it actually looks like it does on paper. All right, then Saturday, our moon in Capricorn is trining Uranus and Taurus, and that's all happening really early, 5:33. It's an earth trine. It's grounded and quietly innovative, right? It's an insight may arrive overnight or an early waking that has a practical and yet creative edge. Something clicks that's been stuck, and by 9:30 a.m., the moon's moving to Aquarius. Woohoo, because that energy shifts now from that Capricorn's dutiful ambition to Aquarius's cool, analytical, humanitarian frequency, right? Just chill. Aquarius is the observer, the innovator, the one who can hold the biggest possible picture without losing their mind in the details. Throughout the afternoon, the Aquarius moon is going to make a series of harmonious aspects for us. The moon sextile Neptune, and that's at right around noon, and that's imaginative and spiritual ease. Then it's Saturn at 3:46, structured clarity, the feeling you know what you're doing. And then the moon will conjunct Pluto in Aquarius at 5:34 p.m. And that final one is really our most powerful. That moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius is chronological depth in a very cool wrapped container. It's intensity without drama. It's transformation without chaos. Old patterns are really going to become visible for us. The unconscious offers up something useful, but it's going to be really excellent terrain for deep inner work, for honest conversations, for clearing what's been silently blocking. And it's a good time for that. Right before bedtime, we have Ceres entering Taurus. And Ceres is the asteroid of nourishment, loss, the natural cycles of giving and receiving, and the grief and beauty of our seasonal change. In Taurus, which is our sign of the body, the earth, sensory pleasure, and the garden, Ceres is asking us, how are you feeding yourself? And I don't mean for food, but with beauty, with pleasure, with rest, with the slow, patient satisfaction of tending to something that's real. This will become the quiet background that you note in the weeks ahead, the invitation to ground your sense of nourishment in the physical and the earthly and the tangible. Our highs, of course, we have Pluto conjunct, and that's going to be some psychological clarity. Ceres entering Taurus, inviting that grounded nourishment and that earth trine at dawn. Not a lot of lows particularly prominent on Saturday. It runs relatively smoothly, which is great, but it's going to be very good for deep, grounded, and quiet transformation. It's a good day for some inner work and some simple and honest pleasure. Then before dawn on our last day on Sunday, we have two significant events occur. At 2:07 a.m., Mars in Pisces is conjuncting Mercury retrograde in Pisces. The mind and the will, they're going to merge in the most dreamy, spiritual, disillusion-prone sign in the zodiac. And with Mercury still moving backwards, not an aspect for launching new initiatives, right? It's an aspect for finally putting words to what you've been feeling, for reviewing the thinking behind your actions, for speaking or writing from that place of emotional and spiritual truth, even if the words are imperfect, which they most likely will be with Mercury retrograde. Old creative projects, conversations that were never resolved, spiritual directions you've been reconsidering. These are the kind of things that may surface on Sunday. And with new quality of clarity, a new willingness to potentially engage. Mars gives Mercury retrograde a voice, so you need to use it. At 3:57 a.m., the balsamic moon begins in Aquarius. The balsamic moon is the most introspective and surrendered phase of the entire lunar cycle, the dark of the moon before the new moon arrives. In traditional astrology, this is a phase of release. It's of rest, of spiritual incubation. You've been through a full lunar cycle since the last new moon, including a lunar eclipse. So whatever this cycle has asked of you, you've completed it or you've done enough of it. Now the soil, excuse me, needs to be quiet. You need to rest. Stop pushing. Stop trying to make things happen. You need to let the week go. Then moon sextile Venus, that's arriving 6:42 a.m., closes the week with that final gentle sweetness. It's a small gift of ease and beauty in love. Our Aquarius moon and Aries Venus are not in the same element, but the sextile creates a social, stimulating connection. An effortless morning movement. It's a quiet sense of it's going to be okay. Our highs are really that Mars Mercury conjunction offering our spiritual voice and that Moon Venus morning sweetness, as well as that balsamic moon giving you permission to just rest. The low trying to push forward when the sky is saying surrender. The low here would be expecting clarity in logical form when it may only arrive as a feeling today. Sunday is really about quiet, surrendered, and softly complete. So just let the week settle. All right, so as we zoom back out of this week, there is just a phrase that runs through this entire week, right? From Monday through Sunday, and that's let it move through you. Jupiter turning direct in Cancer on Tuesday is the week's great gift, but you will only receive it if you have been honest about your emotional roots. If you've done the internal work, the retrograde's asked of you, as it was with Cancer in retrograde. If you're willing to receive expansion in the form of nourishment rather than only in the form of achievement. Jupiter in Cancer doesn't expand through force, it expands through love. Then we have that Mars conjuncting the North Node on Friday, and that's a great invitation. But it's only if you're going to answer it and you're willing to act from your soul rather than from strategy, from compassion rather than ambition. Pisces does not reward those who push hardest. It rewards those who surrender most completely to what's true. Our balsamic moon wrapping everything on Sunday is asking you to close the chapter cleanly, to rest, to trust that the ground is being prepared for something new, right? That new moon is coming. But first, we have to have the silence. The thread running through every single day this week is this: the water knows where it's going. You don't have to direct it, you have to let it carry you. It's somewhere new, it's already there. It's just around the bend. And if you want help understanding how Jupiter's direct station, the North Node, Ceres, any of these transits are activating in your personal chart, please schedule some time with me. I would love to help you explore your unique map. And if this forecast resonated, please like, subscribe, and share. And then this week, I want you to share in the comments that what has Jupiter retrograde in Cancer been asking of you to reclaim in your life, especially in your emotional life, now that we're stationing direct. All right, thanks for joining. I'm Stephanie from Immersive Spirit. And until next week, stay rooted and keep looking up.